right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Commanders Film Room. Mark, it's fancy seeing you here on a Sunday. We don't really do this that often, but it's good to see you. Obviously, we had an emergency podcast, some breaking news for Washington, where Deebo Samuel is now coming over here to DC. I think there's some excitement here. I think we were looking for a wide receiver to complement Terry McLaurin. But I'm curious, before we dive into the film, Mark, what was your initial thoughts on Deebo Samuel? Were you actively hoping that he'd come to DC? Were you hoping another potential wide receiver was going to come, like Cooper Kupp or someone else in that regard? What were your thoughts on Deebo before you got into the film?
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily hoping for Deebo. I personally quite like the idea of Cooper Kupp, and I also was quite intrigued by Christian Kirk. Now, if those guys get cut, maybe there's a chance. I would guess Kupp would at least demand more money than what Washington's willing to pay now at wide receiver. Kirk possibly too, but I could see Kirk still having a role with them. But so I kind of were more intrigued by those. But once I started diving into the film on him, I could see that there is a role for him here, and he fits the system really well. And the things that he does well, the things that he still does well, are things that Washington utilizes in their offense. So I wasn't jumping for joy about the trade because there's a bit of a reputation about him now that he's a bit of a diva and asking for more touches and new contracts and all that kind of thing, and that is what it is. And then there's him being tagged as injury prone, which I don't know how true that is, but he is 29 and he is a very physical type of player, and he relies on that physicality, and obviously that tends to drop off pretty significantly as you age, and he's not a running back per se, but running backs are good examples of most running backs don't make it to their 30s in the league because that physicality just takes that big of a toll. There are questions, but when it's a 5th round pick for a 1-year deal, sure, it's an expensive one, but I think he can still be very productive. And last year they had 2 5th round picks, kind of either side of the pick that they've given up for Deebo, and it was Jordan McGee, who they're certainly high on, but was injured and spent most of the year behind Wagner and Lou, who couldn't get on the field, and then Dominic Hampton, who was inactive every week. So that they're going to get, assuming Deebo's healthy, they're going to get a hell of a lot more production out of that 5th round pick with Deebo than they would have probably from any rookie that they would have drafted.
Absolutely. There's a lot to digest from what you just said, right? Like, I think going into free agency, I thought Cooper Kupp would be probably a better fit for Washington because I feel like he's a zone breaker. He can kind of find the spots for Jane Daniels and provide an outlet, safety net for Jane Daniels to receive the ball. So I was kind of more interested in him. But, doing our film breakdowns throughout the year with you and Nick, we emphasize the pony position, the pony formation, having 2 running backs out of the backfield. And I feel like having that, I think Cliff Kingsbury is the creative coach that will allow Deebo Samuel to maximize his potential here, and really looking forward to the breakdown, which you're going to show in a moment. And then going along with that, a 5th round pick, I do believe, is a pretty low investment. It's obviously it's not cheap, but it's something, San Francisco has, the one thing to kind of look at it objectively, San Francisco has hit on late round picks. I believe Dre Greenlaw was a 5th round pick, and Hufanga, I believe, also from their safety was also a 5th round pick. So there was some potential there, but I do feel like there's immediate production coming with Deebo Samuel, and I think at least for the short term, this is a good thing. Last question I'll say before we go into our film. Do you think this precludes us from pursuing any other wide receiver potentially in the draft, or maybe potentially getting another free agent to kind of fill out the wide receiver room?
I don't think it stops them from going after someone in the draft. I don't think they'll go spend big money on a wide receiver. As I say, with the Cooper Kupp thing, I think that's probably off the table now. It's certainly not trading for him. Maybe if he gets cut by the Rams, and he's willing to take a cheaper free agent deal, then that could still be on the table. I do think they still need another receiver type to go along with them, and we'll get into why with the film breakdown. But I don't think it precludes them from doing most things, but I think it certainly lowers their priority at receiver for now.
Got it. All right, well, let's break that down. I know we're all here for the film breakdown, and Mark, I'm looking forward to watching this and getting some insight from you. So, without further ado, let's get it on.
Cool. So everyone knows Deebo as the ultimate gadget guy, screens, RPOs, and that kind of stuff. So we will start there because it's the obvious place to start. So uh, he might not be the yards after catch guy that he was in 2021 when he had that insane season where he was basically better than anyone in the league at this kind of thing, but he's still pretty good at it. And this is an example from this season. All the clips that I showed Deebo, by the way, are from this season. So I didn't go back previously. I was looking for what he did this year. So we've got him in the slot here. It's just going to be a screen. This is 3rd and 18 against the Seahawks, and they're pretty happy to just throw a screen and get out of it and punt the ball away. And Deebo gets the ball on the screen. And obviously, the 49ers have a nice athletic offensive line. Washington also has a pretty athletic offensive line. Guys get out in front. You get Kittle going to block this one. You get Trent Williams could block this guy, but he's got the left guard here ready to block, and he's going to get upfield. And Deebo's going to go between them, and he's going to bounce around, break through some tackles, get an extra 3 or 4 yards at the end there before being shoved out of bounds. And you'll see it from this one again. He's just going through the screen. It's a nicely set up screen, but at this point, it's like he's bouncing to the sideline. He's surrounded by a couple guys. He's breaking through a couple tackles. You can't just arm tackle him or bring him down easily. It usually takes a couple guys, and he's not as physical as he was back in 2021, but he's still very hard to bring down on your own. And this one here is a good example. Like a nice strong tackle here knocks him out a few yards shy, but he's able to jump forward and get an extra few yards and get to the 50-yard line. Now that isn't a first down, but it was 15 yards on a tunnel screen that would have set them up for 4th and 3. Now the 49ers were in a good position here and they punted the ball away, but we know Washington this year has been very aggressive in those kind of midfield short situations on 4th down, and they could easily have gone for it in that situation, and so he gives them someone that can take those short screens and get more yards than you would necessarily anticipate them getting, and give them more opportunities to be aggressive and go for on 4th down. Now, we've seen these screens all over Washington's offense this year, and specifically in the RPO game. And so we go back, this is back in week 2 against the Giants. They tunnel screened them to death until the Giants got sick of it. And basically, all you're doing here is you're packaging an inside run with a tunnel screen, and it's a box count, or it's a numbers game. So you can see this 4th defender would be 4 over 3, and that would mean you'd run the ball because you'd only have the 4 down linemen and the Mike linebacker in the box. But this guy at the end comes up and tries to blitz off the edge, which gives them 6 in the box and just 3 over 3, which means Jaden Daniels pulls the ball and throws the screen. And you'll see that here real quick. Pulls the ball, throws the screen. You get 2 blockers out in front. The free guy is the safety, but he's got some ground to make up. This is the first down marker, so you only need to get a few yards to the first down, and they get that pretty comfortably. Move the chains. Another example, I'm just going to let it run through because we've seen it already, but we've got the 3 over 3, easy pull and throw. Again, the first down marker was only a 1 yard thing for a first down, so they picked up the first down. Giants get sick and tired of you doing that. So eventually they put 4 guys over here. And what does that mean? That means you're light in the box. And then Brian Robinson gets the ball carried to him. You've got 4 guys over here. You get a nice easy box to run into. And Brian Robinson is off to the races down the sideline, picks up 32 yards. So that's one example of, yeah, go ahead, you want.
And so, yes, interrupt you real quick. So, Mark, first of all, thank you. I love the symmetry, right? Basically showing what Deebo Samuel did with the 49ers and bringing it over to Washington. I think Deebo Samuel in the screen game is more talented than Dyami Brown and even Zacchaeus. I think he has more density, so he'll create after the run. So I'm excited about that. I think there's some upper potential there. One takeaway that I'm seeing is I'm a little bit worried with Sam Cosby's injury to start the year. I think we do need some sort of athletic veteran guard to get out in the blocking. But that's for another conversation later on, I guess.
They will need some more offensive linemen for sure. But this is just another example of the exact same thing. It's different run play packaged in, but from the Lions playoff game. Again, it's 4/3, and you're reading this guy. If he comes, we throw the screen. If he backs away, we hand it off. That linebacker just at the end backs away, holds his position, and you get a nice run up the middle with Brian Robinson. And then the Lions get sick of you throwing those bubble screens and getting 4 or 5 easy yards every time. So they decide to blitz a defender off of there. And then suddenly you're left with 3 receivers out here and just 2 guys to block it. And Terry McLaurin catches the ball and goes yard for a huge touchdown. So that's how Washington incorporates the screen game a ton with RPOs. And Deebo is obviously going to be an upgrade over pretty much anyone that they have running those screens. Now, he doesn't necessarily have the speed that Terry McLaurin has anymore, so he might not have been able to break that one the way Terry did, but you never know. He probably picks up more of the physical ones. But Washington has more screens in their game than just RPOs. So you got just a tunnel screen to De'Ami Brown here. And again, as you're saying, he's going to be an upgrade over De'Ami Brown, over these kind of tunnel screens. And that kind of area where De'Ami gets pushed down from behind real easily is the kind of thing that Deebo is going to have better contact balance. And we'll go back to it here. So De'Ami gets the screen. They set it up pretty nicely. And to be honest, he probably should just carry that up to the sideline and take that safety on. But he cuts it back inside and gets knocked over. But Deebo has better contact balance than that. And, he might have gone outside and been able to break the tackle, the safety, and turn that into a touchdown. And just to emphasize the importance of the screen game in this offense, this is from the Bengals game. I think it was week 3. It was a 3rd down and short. Bengals are lining up everyone at the line of scrimmage. They're showing a big blitz. They're showing man coverage. And so what Jaden Daniels does is he goes up to the line. He's like, okay, I see a big blitz coming. I don't know exactly what it is, but I see one coming. I know I've got man coverage out here. I'm going to change my play. I'm going to audible to just a simple tunnel screen. And I know all these guys are going to blitz, so I'm just going to throw around them, and we're going to get 3-on-2 out here with 2 blockers and give our receiver a chance to go make a play. And again, this is De'Ami Brown getting the ball here with a pretty nice setup to go get a first down. If this block is made a little bit better, this is probably a house call. But Deebo is someone that gives them a chance to break those.
And one thing you put it out there, Mark, that I really appreciate, I think Deebo will be advantageous in the up-tempo game. I feel like it's very hard to, I think Washington led the league in up-tempo play calling, right? So you're just getting to the line, the defense can't substitute, they're kind of scrambled. It's very easy to just kind of flip it into a tunnel screen, throw it to him, and have it create a big play right there. So I agree with that.
And it gives you a nice option to go to against the blitz. Not that Jaden Daniels needs more options. He's pretty good against the blitz, but that's another one. And then Washington does a lot of stuff off of these screens. So here we've got one of these fake screens. You fake the tunnel screen outside, and you send a guy down the sideline, and you send Zach Ertz up the seam. And what you see is you pump fake the tunnel screen, and you get the safety and the slot corner all biting on that tunnel screen because, again, this is back in that Giants game week 2. They've just been seeing these screens all over and over, and Zach Ertz is going to just run up between them up the seam, and Jaden Daniels resets and hits Zach Ertz down the middle for a nice chunk play. This one was from the Falcons game later in the season. Eagles game later in the season. Another fake screen. They're just faking a screen pass to De'Ami Brown in the flat again, and you got Crowder faking the block, and you got McLaurin faking the block, and then Crowder's gonna work around the slot defender, and you can see them all ready to charge out to the flat. So this would be the slot defender that normally would be carrying Jamison Crowder, but because they're thinking it's a screen, he's triggering on the flat, and that leaves Crowder running up. And again, this guy inside is also thinking the ball's going out here. I need to chase this out here, and that leaves Crowder running behind freely, and Jaden Daniels finds him for a touchdown.
Hey, Mark, real quick. So we're watching these breakdowns. It looks like a lot of the plays that De'Ami Brown ran last year is what Deebo Samuel will be doing this year. Is there an apples to apple comparison there? Do you think it's less likely that Diami Brown will come back as a result of Deebo Samuel being here, or can they operate on their own accord?
They can operate on their own a little bit.
Okay.
There is certainly some overlap with certainly the tunnel screens and that kind of stuff on the RPOs, but Diami is a more vertical threat than Deebo is, and so they have different things to offer. So there could still be a role for Diami here. Whether there is, I don't know. They've got some free agent decisions to make, but there could still be a role. Now this is Deebo again back here. We talked about faking things, faking these screens and turning them into big plays. This isn't so much a fake screen as much as he's just kind of faking blocking, and it looks like it's a play action pass and he's faking play action, but it's still within the same kind of theme. Fake a little play action, get the defense to bite inside on this drift route, and he's going to leak down the sideline. Now this is an example of another trait that kind of shows up a couple times. Is he's pretty good at tracking the ball down the field. He doesn't necessarily have the vertical speed to challenge guys down the field as much as he might have done when he was younger. But he tracks the ball well. So here we've got a ball that's kind of light and floaty. This is the ball here. It's kind of dropping in late. And this safety is charging down to try to make this play. But Deebo tracks it really well. And you can see here, he just stops himself and he comes back inside to the trajectory of the ball. And he just jumps it in front of the safety, makes that nice adjustment. Doesn't worry about getting hit. Again, the physicality aspect of him. He's more than happy to go up and make a catch and take a hit if he has to. But then he's off to the races, and he goes and turns it into a big touchdown.
From the small clips that I've gathered over the past 24 hours, it does seem like Deebo Samuel does go get the ball. It seems like he's more like he jumps, uses his hands, grabs, kind of snatches it in the air. So I like that.
Yep. And then the next layer of what you can do with that kind of threat in the screen game is using it as a decoy. So here we've got Olamide Zaccheaus outside, and he's going to do this motion to the backfield, and we'll get to a lot of the backfield stuff later. I've got like tons on the backfield stuff. But for now, we'll just focus on, he's going to motion into the backfield, and then he's going to, at the snap, he's going to swing out to the flat, and they're going to fake it to swing screen out to Zaccheaus. And what they're actually going to do is they're going to have John Bates block inside and then leak out here, and he's going to be in tons of space. So we'll see it here. We motion Zaccheaus into the backfield. We snap the ball. We fake the handoff. Jaden pretends to roll out like he's going to throw this swing screen. You can see you get linebackers biting that way. Safeties all going that way. And what does that leave? John Bates coming nice and free across the middle of the field with all this space. And that's all because you've got multiple guys here eyeing the guy in the flat. Now that's Olamide Zaccheaus, who, he's had a pretty good season and is a very good player in his own right, but he's not Deebo Samuel that would demand much more attention. So that opens up a ton of space for Bates to go and make a nice big play. So that is the kind of ways they can use him in the screen game, the RPO game, and the kind of layers that they can build off of that. In terms of him as a receiver, he's not the kind of guy that you want just running your 12-yard curls and 15-yard comebacks. He doesn't have elite route running ability. He's got some quickness, obviously, and can make some cuts, but he's more about being the guy that you manufacture getting the ball to, and get the ball in his hands on things like shallow crosses, as we're about to see here. So Washington, when you think back to last season, think of Noah Brown. His role as an outside receiver was quite a lot of those timing routes where it would be curls, comebacks, hitches, and those deep in cuts and stuff like that. They're all based on timing. And that's not Deebo's game. So that's why, as I said earlier, I think when we look at free agency and then the draft, I think there's still space on the roster for another outside receiver that can do those things, because that's a different role in this offense. But for Deebo, the kind of things you want to do is manufacture him touches like this. So this is 3rd and 7, I think, against the Cowboys. The 49ers is going to run a mesh concept. Everyone that's watched this show should be familiar with the mesh concept by now. We've shown it a ton. Washington runs it a ton, and you'll see that in a second. But essentially, a mesh concept, for those that don't know, is you have the core of it is 2 shallow crossing routes. So you got Deebo's running a shallow cross from this side. I'm not sure which one of these guys runs it from the other side, but one of these runs a shallow cross from the other side. And the idea is if you get man coverage, they cross really tight together, and it can create a pick for any corner trying to trail. So we'll run this through, and you'll see it. They motion the guy out, make it 4 strong, and yeah, here you go. So you got 19 here, which is Deebo's old number, makes it more confusing. He's going to run his shallow cross, and you can see he's basically running it right in the way of this trailing defender, which makes this guy makes his job a lot more hard. It's already difficult. It's always difficult to run with shallow crossers as a corner, but when you have another receiver running at you, making you adjust your path, it's even harder. So what you'll see is he does a pretty good job avoiding that contact and trying to catch up, but Deebo's still got a step on him, and you can see all this space for Deebo to run into. He makes that catch. Now, this is only 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage. You can see the ref over here is at the line of scrimmage. Deebo's 1 yard beyond it. And the first down marker is up here. So he's still got 6 yards to make up, but he's got a ton of space to do it. And this is exactly the situation you want Deebo to be getting the ball in his hands for, because he's able to run through an ankle tackle, run through a high tackle from a corner that's not as big as him, and then fight through contact, take it down to the 10-yard line. So that's a 15-yard gain on a 1 yard pass on 3rd and 6. So that's exactly where you want Deebo to be getting the ball. Again, we'll just show the end zone angle real quick just to show the physicality that he has. Breaking through an ankle tackle, then having the contact balance to be attacked from both sides, break through from it, and pick up 15 yards.
I like what you said. From what I gathered, it seems that Deebo Samuel kind of thrives more in going against zone defenses, right? He's not necessarily the most intricate route runner. He's not going to, shake people off, but I think he does thrive in yards after the catch. I think the last play exemplifies that, is having that mesh concept and just being so dense and getting that steam behind him. He's hard to tackle. Yeah. Real quick, Mark, I don't know if you want to touch on this now or if we want to touch on it later. We had a question from DT in the chat. He said, is Deebo going to help maximize the run game, in your opinion? Do you think he's still a component of that?
He will be definitely a component of the run game. In terms of what we talked about already with the RPOs and stuff, he's going to be more of a threat. He's going to demand attention on those screens on the edge. And that's just going to take guys out of the box to make things easier in the run game up front. So we talked about that component of it. There is a component of it where he will be involved in the run game as a runner himself, which we'll get onto. I've got plenty of that coming up.
Okay.
So, but we'll focus first on just him as a receiver.
Okay.
So this is an example of Washington running the same concept that we just saw Deebo run a minute ago with the mesh concept. So this is Terry McLaurin, fourth and 1, I think, 4th and 2 against the Lions. Terry McLaurin's running the shallow cross from one side. I think it's Zach Ertz running it from the other side. And you can see, again, it's just Washington running the same play. Terry's running that shallow cross. He runs open, gets the catch, and he's able to turn upfield and take a hit and get a good gain. And obviously you still want Terry to be able to do those things, but having Deebo being able to do those things can take some of the stress off of Terry's plate from being the only guy that would do that in that. If you go back, watch over the season, you think 4th down, 3rd down, key situations, it was basically Terry or Zach Ertz on a timing thing. Giving them Deebo with those kind of mesh concepts and stuff is another weapon to have in those key situations. Now, it's not all just shallow crosses and mesh stuff and screens. Deebo does have some ability to attack further down the field. Where he's most dangerous is on play action passes, where he can work over the middle. And we saw Jaden Daniels get more and more comfortable with that throughout the year. And this is a concept that anyone that is familiar with Kyle Shanahan will know, where it's a play action pass, they're going to fake a run, and Deebo's going to run this deep in cut over the middle of the field. I'll just roll it on and we'll show it. And you're going to get this nice big space. So deep safety's got extra depth. The linebackers underneath are held up front, and you get this nice big gap in between them. You've got a zone corner on the outside with outside leverage, so he's not going to be able to catch up, and Deebo's just going to be able to break inside to the middle of the field here. And then he makes a real nice catch here. This is another thing that jumped up. I talked earlier about the ball skills, the tracking, when we saw that ball down the sideline where the safety was going to get it. This is a real nice example of that tracking and those ball skills as well. I'll just let it run through. Go up and snag that from the safety. Though that is something that is a little bit underrated. A lot of quarterbacks can sail those throws down the middle of the field a little bit, and certainly Jaden had a few of those this year. When you're not 100% sure exactly how much to put on it, or maybe you're under pressure and you just put a little bit too much on it. And those are dangerous throws to sail, because as you saw, that safety was, if I wind this back, that safety was ready to intercept that pass. If you've got a deep safety in the middle of the field and you're high over the middle, this safety is hunting, ready to go and get that ball. So Deebo goes up and gets it before it gets to that safety. That's a real nice grab from Deebo.
Exactly.
And it's a little bit behind him, so he's having to adjust to go back on himself. It's a real good ball tracking, ball skills, body adjustment in the air. And the other part of it is he's not afraid of taking that hit. He'll know that safety is coming at him. When you're going up to grab those, your ribs are exposed, your back's exposed, you're a defenseless receiver. A big hit could be incoming, and he doesn't have any hesitation. He goes up and makes the play and secures the pass. So here's a few examples of Washington running basically the same concept. Back in the Giants game, I think this was the Week 9 one, the second Giants game. This is 21 pony personnel that we talked about with two running backs, and this is something where Deebo could play a couple of different roles here. You got Austin Eckler in the flat, and we'll come to more of this later on, but Austin Eckler's going to motion into the backfield to give them two backs, and he's going to swing out to the flat. But Noah Brown here is going to run this deep over that we just saw Deebo run and catch the same thing. But essentially you could have Deebo being this guy, getting guys to work out to the flat and focus on him and opening up space over the middle for Noah Brown. And Noah Brown goes and makes a nice catch. But that's one example. Same thing again against the Ravens, another play action pass. You get those deep overs to Noah Brown running over the middle of the field again. Ball's a little bit behind him, unfortunately. But, you know, Deebo is a little bit quicker than Noah Brown in being able to make that adjustment and get back up to speed. Now, that throw is enough behind Noah Brown that he gets tackled pretty quickly here. But Deebo has the ability to bring that catch in, make that adjustment and get back up to speed, maybe break a tackle and turn that into a potentially huge play rather than, I mean, it's a big play anyway, but it potentially could have been a touchdown sort of thing.
Hey, Mark, another question for you from the chat. I don't know if you're open for it right now.
Go for it.
I don't know if you've watched it yet. Give me 1 second. There has been some like contention that he has had a lot of drops throughout his career. Did you notice that with the film studies you've been doing?
What I went into it expecting that because I've heard that same thing myself. And there was one game where he did have there was one that was a harsh drop because it got tipped in front of him, and it was a really hard catch to make because it literally got tipped a yard in front of him and it bobbled up. So that one's not really a drop. The one kind of criminal one was there was a tunnel screen that he dropped. But generally speaking, I actually felt his ball skills were better than I was anticipating, because as I say, I'd heard the reports of him having drop issues and stuff like that, but I've kind of shown in this one he's had the ability to go up and go get the ball high, tracks the ball well down the field. I didn't put in one of these plays, but there was a bootleg against the Seahawks where the throw was way behind him and he managed to reach back, tip it up and catch it. So he has good ball skills, I think. Certainly from what I saw last year, I think I've done 6 games with him from last year.
Okay.
And maybe I've just missed the ones where he dropped tons of them. But if I recall correctly, I think he had something like 7 drops on 70 targets or something like that last year, which isn't great, but it's also not horrifically bad. And again, he's not going to be the guy that you're running the kind of routes that typically would see receivers drop the ball. Like, he's not going to be running those timing routes, the curls, the comebacks, the hitches, the quick ins and stuff like that. He's going to be running routes where it's short, quick stuff that gets the ball in his hands quickly. He's able to secure it and tuck it away, and this kind of thing. Actually, that we talked a little bit about RPOs earlier. This is how the 49ers were on RPO. It's a fully a run, but they have a now slant on the backside, and this is Deebo running this what they call a now slant, where he's just running a slant, one step slant rather than working out the field. And basically, the quarterback's reading if this corner is playing off or in press, and this corner is playing off. So we're going to send the guy in motion, and we're going to fake handing off, and we're just going to take one step and immediately throw this slant to Deebo. And Deebo catches the ball. This is 5 yards down the field. Here's the first down marker. And he's going to run through a couple tackles, bounce off some guys, and extend that ball out for a first down. So, I mean, if only football was that easy every play, just throw a quick slant and pick up 10 yards every play, right?
I think that's what we're going to get out of him, in my opinion, right? Like I said earlier in a tweet last night, I don't know if he's going to have monster numbers this year. I just think he's going to move the chains. He's going to win some games for us this year. I think that's kind of the takeaway I get from Deebo Samuel.
Yeah, I think he has the potential to have some monster games. I don't think he won't be the guy that had 1,400 yards receiving and another 600 yards rushing or whatever it was back in 2021. That's a ridiculously high standard for anyone to reach. But I think he can be pretty productive in this system, and especially with the two-back stuff that we'll get into. And we're nearly there, but we'll just carry on through this as a receiver. This is Washington's version of what we just saw. This would be the RPO. It's not a slant, it's more of a glance, a deeper route, but it's the same idea. You can run the ball or you can pull it in and throw to Terry. And you'll see this safety starts biting down, and he widens to cover the tight end in the flat. So Jaden pulls the ball and throws it over the middle. And this is exactly where you want Terry in this situation, but you also want Deebo in this kind of situation where there's a safety to beat, a corner to beat, but they're both 5 yards off him. He's able to secure the ball, and Terry's off to the races. Now, Deebo probably runs through that safety rather than tries to avoid him, but you get the same idea. So, I like watching Terry McLaurin, so we'll just let it run through one more time. Where
Me too.
Turns on the Jets there and runs away from it. I still can't believe he got caught by that corner. I thought that was a touchdown for sure. And then a few different ways you might be able to use him. This is in Zacchaeus' role again. This is a little quick game concept that they run quite a lot called bow, where you've got this little what they would call an arrow route or spot route, where Zacchaeus is going to spot up in between the running back running to the flat and the tight end running a basic cross. And you'll often see this run paired with a different concept called arrow, where this tight end will run a corner route, and they will run those two pairs of concepts together multiple times a game. But the idea here is Jaden Daniels is really quick at processing. He's really quick at seeing who he can get the ball out to and get the ball in their hands quickly. And if you run just a quick little thing like this with Zacchaeus, and we'll run that on, you can have some yard after catch opportunities too. So you're going to get ball snapped, and Jaden Daniels is really quick processing this. So he's got his eyes to the read, and he can see this linebacker is rushing out to the flat to cover Robinson. So he's not a threat to Zacchaeus' route. He can see this linebacker in the middle of the field is kind of holding his position and waiting for the tight end to get there. And you can see this corner out here is sitting off. So he's not charging in on Zacchaeus. So he knows at this point already, Jaden Daniels knows, despite it looking very muddy, actually Zacchaeus is going to be open when he spots up here. So he quickly, immediately gets the ball out. And that means Zacchaeus gets the ball as soon as he sits down, which gives him time to turn up the field. Now, again, Zacchaeus is a very good player, and this is a nice opportunity for him to pick up an extra 4 or 5 yards. But again, you're thinking Deebo Samuel getting that ball is potentially going to get you more than what Zacchaeus gets there. So I think this is the last one in terms of wide receiver stuff. This was De'Ami Brown. You might want to use, it might sound silly what I'm going to say, but you might want to use Deebo as one of your chippers. Now, they use chips a lot this year, where you chip the edge rusher, you help the tackle out in pass protection, and then you work out to the flat. Now, this was from the Giants game. I think the second Giants game. It was 3rd and 18, and they were running some chains concepts, and they were trying to pick up the first down, but De'Ami Brown chips it, and Jaden Daniels gets to the top of his drop and sees that he's probably not going to get these curl routes down the field. Now you could go to Zach Ertz over the middle, but Ertz isn't a yak guy, whereas De'Ami Brown's running in the flat, and he's got this safety that is nearly 20 yards off of it. Now again, if you're thinking this could be Deebo, you throw him the ball in the flat. Now again, it's 3rd and 18, so you don't really have too much to lose here anyway, but De'Ami does a nice job making that guy miss, turning up the sideline and turning that into a big play. I don't know if Deebo can do more than that, but that's the kind of thing that Deebo is very capable of doing as well.
Absolutely.
And this was the last wide receiver thing. So this is another way you can kind of use him as a receiver. Again, it's kind of in Zacchaeus' role, where he's going to motion into the backfield and act like he's going on this kind of end around, or what you might call orbit or ghost motion. But he's going to pause in the backfield and pivot back outside on a swing pass. So you can see they're rock and rolling their coverage. The safety's rolling over the top. This guy's shifted inside, and then suddenly Zacchaeus is rolling back outside, and Jaden flicks the ball out there. And again, this is exactly the kind of situation you want Deebo getting the ball in his hands. He's got a defensive lineman peeling off that he's able to run away from, guys with 10, 15 yards to make up, one blocker ahead of him, and he can get down the sideline and pick up some yards after the catch. So those are the kind of things that you might use Deebo on as a receiver. As I say, you don't want him running your 12-yard comebacks, your 15-yard comebacks, your 12-yard curls, your kind of timing rhythm routes that you had like Noah Brown and to an extent Terry McLaurin and stuff running last year. What you want him to, you kind of have to manufacture him touches, but he's worth it because of his yards after the catch ability, which I think is still pretty good. I think we've shown some examples of that already, where he's still very physical. He's still able to break tackles. He's still very hard for one guy to bring down on his own. But for me, the real appeal of what Deebo could bring is, as you kind of mentioned earlier, the 21 pony stuff. And for people that don't know, 21 pony personnel is 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 2 receivers, so 21 personnel. But the pony tag means that the 2 backs, rather than traditionally in 21 personnel, the 2 backs is a running back and a fullback. In 21 pony, the pony means that your 2 backs are traditional running backs. And I guess in Deebo Samuel's case, it's not going to be running back. He's not a traditional running back, but he can do some of it. And so we saw that a lot last year with Washington. They got into a lot of very creative stuff. In fact, pretty much all of Kingsbury's real creative stuff came out of that 21 pony personnel package. And so we can see some of it here. This is an example of what you can do with Deebo. So you've got him outside here stacked in a set, and he's going to run just an end around, kind of jet sweep end around thing. McCaffrey in the backfield that's going to become a lead blocker. And we saw that last year a lot with McNichols and Eckler doing this kind of thing, where one of them would become the lead blocker for the other. And you're going to run this end around jet sweep kind of thing to Deebo, and he's going to get the handoff, and now you've got blockers out in front, and he's going to turn it upfield and break through some tackles and pick up a first down and 12 yards. And again, you see it out here. McCaffrey does a nice job being a good teammate, turning into a fullback for him, leading the way. You get some nice blocks out in front, nice pin inside, and Deebo's able to work his magic and go pick up a first down. You can also line him up in the backfield and play him as a traditional running back. Now, he's not a guy that you want to give 10, 15 carries a game, but he is someone that you can give 4 or 5 carries a game, maybe. And sometimes it's just 1 or 2, but it's just something that you can give a different look. You can move him around. You can line him up in the backfield as a running back. Here, they're just going to run a crack toss scheme that we've seen Washington run a fair few times. Not necessarily at this look, because you've got a fullback in the backfield as well. But there's a jet sweep running to get this receiver out of the way. This receiver is going to pin the defensive end inside. Trent Williams is going to pull around. You're going to have the fullback pulling out to the edge, and Deebo is going to swing out to the flat and get the ball tossed to him. And you run that crack toss. Now, you're not going to run Deebo between tackles very often. But if you are going to put him in the backfield, you're going to run these kind of perimeter runs like this, where again you've got blockers on the edge for him, and you're working to get him outside, and he's able to. Like, there wasn't a hell of a lot going for him there, but he's able to get an edge. Those guys, Trent Williams in particular, does a nice job setting the edge for him, and Deebo's able to show that explosiveness to get up the side, turn the corner, get up the sideline, and turn that into a nice 5-yard gain, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I think you did a great job, Mark, breaking down the film altogether. I feel like Deebo fits our system very, very well. Like, I don't know if he was a true wide receiver too that we were looking for in free agency, but he's a great piece to have on our team. I feel like Washington loves to utilize a short game, the screen game, the pass game, run after catch, which I think he'll thrive in. I think he'll thrive in the pony personnel as well. And these, I also like what you said right here with the perimeter runs. Deebo Samuel going on the perimeter is going to be the larger player going around the outside, if that makes any sense. He weighs 220 pounds going against these corners that are 190, 180. I think he can create that, that extra yardage with his with that power that he brings. Getting those, those little tosses for 4 or 5 yard plays. So I think it's a great fit for our team.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was the first example of what we saw, the 21 pony package that I talked about. This was back in week 1 against the Bucs, and this was the first time we saw it. And I think they ran it a couple plays in a row. And so this first one. You get what I believe is called a sidecar formation, where you get Eckler and Brian Robinson kind of stacked next to Jaden Daniels, and Eckler's going to run out to the flat on a fake swing pass, and he's going to take this linebacker out with him, and that's going to give him a nice look to run the ball into, and Brian Robinson's going to run into it. So you can see how this linebacker pauses while he waits to see the ball's handed off or thrown out to the flat. He's got responsibility to get out there to make that play if this ball's thrown out to the flat. But because he holds his position, Daniels knows he can just hand the ball off and pick up a nice run, and Robinson's going to make him miss in the open field and pick up a nice gain. And again, you'll see it from the end zone angle here. You can just see he's just holding his position. Now, normally on any kind of normal run, he'd be driving down and filling this gap. But because he's being held with the threat of Eckler, Robinson's able to go and make a play and make him miss in the open field.
Mark, quick question for you. I know it's a predictability game, and it's hard to predict in whatever March we're in right now. How do you think Deebo Samuel will affect the run game in regard to reps for Eckler and Brian Robinson? Like, let's say this pony package, is it completely up in the air right now? Like, we have no idea how it's going to play out. Like, because we have that power back with Brian Robinson, we have that flex back with Eckler. What are your initial thoughts on that so far?
I think he could do a lot of the things that they did with Eckler last year in this. Okay. Package, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have to replace Eckler, because Eckler could play both roles. He kind of played the main running back role when it was him and McNichols, and when it was him and Robinson, he played the kind of off back role.
Complementary role.
So, Eckler could do both roles. Deebo could certainly do the kind of off back role, and we'll see what other running back they might add to the room as well. Yeah, I don't think it will necessarily impact a huge amount of Eckler. It could be that they see that as a better option than Eckler, and they decide to cut Eckler and get some salary back because they can make some savings there. But I think that's presumptive at this point, and I think you can see him work with Eckler in this kind of package, especially when you get to the receiver part, like we see here, where this time, I think this was possibly the very next play, where Robinson and it's the same package, but they've gone no huddle, they've gone hurry up, they've kept that same defensive formation and personnel on the field, but now they're in empty, and now Robinson's in the slot, Eckler's in the slot, and Eckler's going to chip and release to the flat, and Robinson's just going to run a shallow cross. Again, this is something we thought we wanted to see Deebo Samuel on, running these shallow crosses, right? And so he's just going to run this shallow cross. Now, there's two things you could say here. Either role is wide open. You could chuck this out to Eckler, or you can throw this shallow cross to Brian Robinson. Either one of those, you're going to be happy if this is Deebo Samuel getting the ball at this point. And Brian Robinson does a real nice job turning this up the field and taking this down to the one. Nearly got in.
Wow.
But the best part about it is when he didn't get in, they very quickly got themselves up to the line of scrimmage, and suddenly Austin Eckler's now a slot receiver. And again, if you're talking about Deebo Samuel, he could be this slot receiver. If you want to cause even more confusion, you put Brian Robinson in the slot and you put Deebo Samuel in the backfield, and suddenly the defense is wandering around. Oh, how do we match up to this? Do we put a linebacker out here? Do we put a safety out here? What do we do? And you can see the Bucs are already, because they're scrambling, because of the no huddle and the up tempo getting set quickly. They're scrambling to get a guy over to Eckler. And what does Washington run? Just a simple read option play. Jaden Daniels keeps the ball. You kind of forget that, oh yeah, we've got Jaden Daniels as well. And he walks it in for a touchdown.
And Mark, the underrated thing about this clip right here, people might not understand the context. This is week 1, right? This is week 1. Cliff Kingsbury still trying to figure out his style. Now we have a full year with Cliff Kingsbury again in Washington, another year with Jaden Daniels. Our offensive staff altogether is all set. So now we can elevate this offense even further.
Yep, 100%. And so this, we can the 21 pony personnel package kind of evolved over the course of the season, and they got into more of it. And obviously there was the time when Eckler missed when he was dealing with the concussion, and that kind of delayed things a little bit. But this was the Panthers game. This was the play that Jaden Daniels actually hurt his ribs on, but it was a hell of a play. And you see this is McNichols in the backfield, and again Eckler in the slot, and he's going to run this motion across the formation, loop all the way back around, and sit in the backfield. All misdirection stuff. You could quite easily just motion from here to here, but go the long way around, confuse the defense a little bit. And then you're going to run the GT counter play that they ran so well last year. We won't bother going into the specifics of that, but basically Jaden Daniels reading this defensive end, and he's able to keep it. And Austin Eckler then turns into a lead blocker for Jaden Daniels. You'll see it here. We'll run it through. He's reading this defensive end crashes. Eckler loops around and is now the lead blocker. And then suddenly you get a block on the edge. Again, this, you could easily see this being Deebo. Deebo's a very good blocker, and has been his whole career. Deebo could also be playing this role. Either way, you're getting Jaden Daniels on the edge, and he goes and takes it 50 yards. And I still don't know why he didn't score, but again, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He had a pretty good year anyway. And so this is the end zone angle.
He had a pretty good year. My takeaway from what you're showing here is that I think there's some purpose behind getting Deebo Samuel, right? So I think a lot of people attach Adam Peters and the whole GM connection from him coming to DC, but I think there's a logical fit with him in our offense as well. It's not just a nepotism, we picked him because we know him kind of thing. I mean, there's an added component to that, but I think he can be our running back, or he can be our wide receiver, he can be our blocking back. He fits for what we are trying to do, which kind of had a seamless transition, which is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely a lot of different things in this offense that we saw last year that Deebo can do, and do at a better level than what they had doing.
I agree.
And we've kind of seen over the course of this that he can fill the roles of different guys. Zacchaeus, he's playing could do a lot of things Zacchaeus did, as we talked about with De'Ami Brown. He could do a lot of the things De'Ami did. We're seeing now some of the stuff Austin Eckler did, Deebo could do. And upgrade on all of them in one player. So there's definitely a really good fit in this offense. And I think outside of the 49ers offense, this one is probably the one that fits Deebo and his skill set the most. So this, I just like the sequencing here. This was the same look that they had in the Panthers game the week before. The next week against the Bears, they showed the same look, just flipped. This time it's Brian Robinson in the slot and Austin Eckler in the backfield. And he's going to run that same motion that we just saw, where he motions across and loops back around. And then instead of running the ball, they're going to fake it, run a play action, and then hit a sail concept. And so I'll just get through this one quickly. Same motion, same look and everything, just slightly different personnel. Fake the handoff. And again, having seen that the week before, these guys will be biting on that. And again, if Deebo's involved, they're more worried about Deebo being involved than Austin Eckler or Brian Robinson with respect to those guys. And so you can see these linebackers are biting up, and the distance between the deep safety and the linebackers is huge. And this time they have Ertz breaking outside, but you could easily run over the middle off of that kind of play action. And Ertz picks up a nice chunk play off of that. So,
and Mark, hearing what you're saying, it seems like you think he's a significant upgrade from the talent that we have on our team.
Absolutely, yeah,
Okay.
definitely, and there's so many different ways in which they can use him, and especially in this package. If you're willing to consider him as kind of a receiving running back almost, rather than just a wide receiver. So this is that same sidecar look we saw earlier. It's going to be a play action pass, but you're going to have Eckler is going to go in motion and then kind of return back into it, and he's going to work out to the flat. And again, if you're thinking Deebo could play the Eckler role, you'll see why I've included this play in a minute. You fake the play action, you get everyone going down the field, and you get this linebacker thinking, oh, this is a play action pass. I need to go and cover the middle of the field. And what does that leave? It leaves Austin Eckler in the flat here with acres of space. And again, replace Eckler with Deebo Samuel. This is exactly the picture you want Deebo Samuel to be getting the ball. Now, Eckler doesn't do a bad job here at all. Eckler does a pretty nice job, but Deebo probably runs through more of those tackles and runs through that one earlier and probably gets more out of it. And let me just wind this back a little bit. Another example of we talked about earlier with the screen game. This time it's 20 pony, so they don't have a tight end on the field. There's 3 receivers and 2 running backs, but it's the same idea. You get Eckler motioning out to the flat, and he's going to be the guy on the screen. Again, replace Eckler with Deebo, get guys out in front, run away from a tackle, and go run through contact, pick up a first down. And the nice thing, again, about what Kingsbury can do is he layers these concepts. So this is the same idea. It's from a slightly different look, but again, you get the threat of Eckler running out to the flat on a swing screen, and Jaden Daniels is going to read this linebacker, and he sees that linebacker backing off, having already seen this swing screen once. And what does that do? That leaves them with a light box. And then the beauty of having a guy like Jaden Daniels is this running back can turn into a lead blocker, and Jaden Daniels can turn it into a QB draw. So you build layers and layers on top of this. So there is a deep package of stuff that Cliff Kingsbury can do from this personnel group with Deebo Samuel involved. And if you want to get really into the deep parts of the playbook, this was the flea flicker that they ran out of this personnel back in week 7, I think it was, against the Ravens, something like that, week 6.
Like that, yeah.
It's the flea flicker screen. You're going to pretend Eckler's going to be blocking on a play action pass or a run. McNichols is going to get the ball handed off to him, and he's going to pitch it back to Jaden, and then he's going to throw a quick screen to McNichols in the flat. There's the pitch back a little bit early. I'd like to see McNichols hold that ball a little bit longer to make these guys bite a little bit harder. But it works out, and Jaden's able to make it work, and Eckler's able to make it work. And now suddenly you've got Eckler with one blocker in front and a ton of space. Again, you're thinking Deebo Samuel in this exact situation is exactly what you want. Again, Eckler doesn't do a bad thing. He does pretty well there.
I'm walking away with some good Eckler film right here, Mark. He's looking pretty good, actually. So I like that takeaway.
He was a good piece. He was a very good piece last year when he was healthy. It's just more of what Deebo can do.
Absolutely.
So,
and real quick, sorry to interrupt you one more time. I thought you had a pretty powerful point talking about having Jaden Daniels being a mobile quarterback. I think he adds another wrinkle to the run game. So having Deebo, that misdirection, that zone read, I think it's going to be more of a dangerous component for Washington as well.
Absolutely. And then you can do some funky stuff with the passing game with Deebo in the backfield. And they got to it a little bit last year when I think this game against the Cardinals, they had both Eckler and Brian Robinson out. And so Zacchaeus stepped in as kind of this second running back in this situation. In this case, he's the only running back on the field. You've got tight end in the slot, tight end over here. You've got Noah Brown and Terry McLaurin. So Zacchaeus is playing the role of the running back here. Now he's going to motion to almost a tight end position and run a choice route. But you can just, again, imagine this is Deebo Samuel in the backfield here. Working out the backfield, you're motioning him to a tight end position. What that's going to do is that's going to get him Zacchaeus matched up on this linebacker. Now, Zacchaeus on a linebacker is a great matchup. Obviously, or anytime you get a receiver on a linebacker, that's a great matchup for the offense. But again, you're thinking Deebo Samuel instead of Zacchaeus running this little choice route on this linebacker. The linebacker is going to have no chance, and Zacchaeus gave him no chance. But again, this is the exact situation you want Deebo Samuel getting the ball, where he's got the ball in his hands, able to turn up the field with a little bit of space and guys incoming that he can try to run through. And, Zacchaeus gets knocked over here. I think there's every chance Deebo gets an extra 3 or 4 yards out of that from the physicality that he runs with. And you can see it again from the backfield angle here. He motions out here to the slot, and he's matched up on this linebacker. It's a great matchup for Washington. And again, if you're thinking it's Deebo Samuel instead of Zacchaeus, that's an even better matchup. And this was an example of Deebo running a very similar play. He's not quite the running back. He's almost a H-back here, or kind of a fullback, just behind the line of scrimmage. But he's going to run the same kind of choice route where he's going to widen out here and he can break it off outside or inside. Ideally, you're working inside, and you can see the little misdirection with the running back out to the flat here. He's going to get all these guys working out here. And suddenly you've got this corner, 24, is trying to cover Deebo, but you can see Deebo working outside and he's trying to get outside. And what do you see? All that space in the middle of the field. And suddenly Deebo starts breaking inside away from the corner, and he's got all this space in the middle of the field to work with. And this is exactly where you want Deebo getting the ball, as we've been talking about the entire time. Makes the catch, and we'll see from the end zone angle, that's a nice catch behind him. You talked earlier about potential drops. This shows just his hands and ability to track this ball. This ball is low, a little bit behind him. He makes the catch. You would expect every receiver to make that catch. But the thing that he does next level is he opens his hips the other way and he spins out of it so that he keeps his momentum going forward. He's still able to run away from this guy. Most receivers would have had to have basically fallen over to make that catch. Deebo was able to flip his hips, open his hips inside and spin out of it so that he's able to keep his balance. And now he's still at full speed, running away from that guy, runs through, makes it an arm tackle, whereas most guys would have been tackled or fallen over themselves. And now again, he's in the open field. He's able to turn up the field and turn this into a huge play.
This is a good point to emphasize. You talked about all of these clips being from 2024. I think a lot of people are talking about Deebo Samuel doesn't have that much juice anymore, maybe not have the speed anymore, but that was a great play right there.
Yep. And then this is another one where he's a running back in this situation. He is the running back on the field. He's in the backfield. It's 3rd and 6 against the Cowboys, or 3rd and 5 maybe. Cowboys are showing a blitz look. Now, typically in this kind of look, you'd want your running back to step up and block. And you're worried about both these linebackers blitzing, and you want your running back to step up and block. The 49ers think of it slightly differently. They think we've got Deebo, and one of these two linebackers in the A-gap is going to have to try to cover him. So what we'll do is we'll do a little exit motion before the snap, move Deebo out here, and these linebackers are one of them is going to have to follow him. And if they don't, we're just going to throw it quickly to Deebo. But they do. And I think this is Eric Kendricks follows him out. And what that means is before the ball snaps, now suddenly both linebackers are bailing out of it. And suddenly the quarterback and the offensive line have a clear picture of, oh, actually, they aren't blitzing. It looked like it was going to be a big blitz. Actually, it's just a 4-man rush. And we know that we've got man coverage with Deebo on a linebacker, as we just talked about with Zacchaeus. A receiver on a linebacker is always a matchup you want to work. And if you can put a receiver in the backfield as a running back, as a legitimate running back threat, you will get them matched up on linebackers if the defense plays man coverage. And so what does that turn into? That turns into Deebo running down the sideline on linebacker. And, Deebo won't necessarily do this to many corners, but he'll do this to pretty much most linebackers. And he will run past them. You can see he's got a couple steps on him. Now, again, I talked earlier about the hands, the ball tracking skills down the field. This is another example of the ability to track the ball down the field. This ball is underthrown. If this is a good throw, this safety's not getting him, and this is a touchdown. But this ball is underthrown. So you can see Deebo's tracking the ball well. He's having to slow himself down, come back to the ball, makes a nice catch back to the ball with a defender near him. But this is where a lot of receivers would get tackled at this point. A linebacker coming back, making contact on them after they had to make an adjustment to get back to the ball. But Deebo isn't most receivers, and he is able to fight through this contact, keep balance, bounce off what's admittedly a weak tackle from the safety, get up the field, and pick up an extra 20 yards on that. So that just shows he's still got some juice left to him. He's not completely washed up as people some people have been making out to be. He does still have some juice to him. And then one final one I think I've got. Oh, I've made it under an hour. How about that? One final clip I've got. Just another thing that you can do with him out of the backfield. This is Austin Eckler this time. This was a screen they only used once, and I was surprised because it was so good. This is a halfback Texas route, or anyone that's played Madden will know this is Texas or angle. But but they're faking your 4 verticals. So they've got 3 verticals on this side, and you're just going to turn this one into a shallow cross. And it's looking like it's a 4 verticals with a shallow cross, but actually you got the running back running an angle route, and you got your 2 guards are going to go and lead block from it. It's actually a screen. It's a super nice design. I love this scheme from Kingsbury. And what you get is, again, you get your guards faking blocking, and then they're going to go and lead the way. Eckler is going to come back inside, and that's going to give Sam Cosmi, I think, at right guard, a nice angle to go block this linebacker. And look at this. You got Austin Eckler, 2 guards blocking that, and all this space to go in the middle of the field. You've got corners that aren't looking because they're covering their receivers down the field.
Beautiful play.
Fantastic design. And again, you're thinking Deebo Samuel on that exact design.
I wish Eckler went out wide on that play. I feel like he kept running to the sidelines. I feel like a bit bigger play for him if he kept going. But
yeah, well, but again, this is just an example of the kind of situation you want to get a guy like Deebo in. Ball in his hand, quick. Not again, this is within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage, but he's got 2 blockers out in front. You got Terry McLaurin blocking this guy. You got this corner not even looking because he's chasing the receiver down the field. And then you've got, he's already, 10, 15 yards down the field before he's even going to potentially be contacted. And Deebo probably runs through one of those tackles. So yeah, that I think I've managed to do it in just about an hour. That I think is a pretty good example of what Deebo Samuel can bring to Washington and how he can fit in what Washington does. I think he can fill a lot of the roles that they have. We saw multiple different players use. Like, he can do some of the stuff that we saw with Diami on the perimeter as a screen guy in the RPOs and tunnel screens and stuff. We can see him do a lot of the stuff that Zacchaeus did with moving around, lining up in the backfield, lining up in the slot, and doing those kind of things. You can see him do some of the stuff that Noah Brown did off of play action, those deep overs. And you can see him do some of the stuff that Austin Eckler did in that 21 pony package. So there's a lot that he can do in this offense. That's 4 guys that he can do parts of their roles and package it all up into one guy. There is some risk of doing that because then if that one guy gets injured, you're suddenly having to have 4 guys replace him. But that I think it shows that there is a purpose to this move, as you said, that there is a lot of things that he does that his skill set fits what this offense does. So there's a lot of ways that he will fit very seamlessly into this system, and it will enable Kingsbury to really dive into his creativity with that 21 pony package. That's the thing that I'm most excited to see. The kind of stuff where he's in the backfield. Yeah, the backfield stuff is the stuff that I'm excited most about. And yeah, I think there's a lot to like about what he can bring. Obviously, there's still some questions. It's only a 1-year deal, and the salary and some of the injury stuff and how the production might drop off with his age. But when it's only a 1-year deal, it's worth a risk for 1 year, I reckon.
I agree with that.
And I think there's enough juice that we saw last year. And you hope that he's fully healthy this offseason and comes in with a point to prove. And there's certainly enough of a fit with this system where he can make a pretty big impact in this offense.
So a couple things. I think walking away from Deebo Samuel, for one, I think it's kind of surprising the stat that popped out to me. He's going to be one of our younger offensive weapons, believe it or not, Mark. He's younger than Terry McLaurin, younger than Zach Ertz, younger than Austin Eckler. So I think he's going to be – he still has a little bit of juice left in the tank because Terry McLaurin had a renaissance year last year. So I'm excited about that. I think another thing to consider is people want him to be a true wide receiver too. I think what we saw from your video today, what we should be looking at, is more of an offensive weapon. He's more of a piece of the offense that's flexible, that Cliff Kingsbury can be creative with. I think can create a lot of mismatches that we could take advantage of, which is what I'm looking for. We have a question from the chat. I don't know if you have a minute or two, Mark. We'll throw it out there real quick. We kind of touched on it earlier. Allison brought up the question, what's up, guys? I went on my cousin's podcast last night after the deal. He's a Niners fan. I told him this is just the start of remaking our wide receiver room. What do you guys think? I can start off if you want. Whatever.
Yeah, go for it.
I was going to say, I think, like I just kind of alluded to, I think Deebo Samuel is going to be a piece to our offense. I don't think he's the final piece. I think Terry McLaurin is still the true wide receiver 1 for us. We're going to be filtering a lot of our targets through him. Deebo Samuel's going to be more of an offensive weapon. We're going to be using him out of the backfield, using that more as a yards after catch guy. But I wouldn't be surprised if Washington continues to build the room, and they have to actually. If you think about it, they only have 3 players under contract: McCaffrey, McLaurin, and Deebo Samuel. So they, typically you walk away with 6 or 7 in the room. So they're going to be adding more talent. I wouldn't be surprised if they add like a Darius Slayton or Christian Kirk, maybe at a high-end free agent, but at the very least, I see a draft pick added to the room. But Mark, what are your thoughts?
No, I 100% agree. I think obviously they have to add more guys because, as you say, they've only got 3 under contract with Deebo, Terry, and Luke McCaffrey. So they will add more. I wouldn't be surprised to see Zacchaeus and one of the Browns back, Noah Brown or De'Ami Brown. I'm sure they will look at outside guys. I would be interested in Christian Kirk if he does become available, if the Jags cut him. I would still be interested in Cooper Kupp if the Rams cut him.
Yeah,
but
me too.
I don't know whether I think that might be off the table now. But I certainly think they need more. They need more of a vertical threat on the outside.
I agree.
As I kind of tried to show with the wide receiver part of this, the kind of routes that you want Deebo running are short, manufactured stuff to get the ball in his hands quickly and let him go to work after the catch. And that was a large part of this offense, but it wasn't the only part of this offense. And the stuff that we saw Noah Brown do and Terry McLaurin do on the outside was, those timing routes where you need to have good route running ability to both separate from corners and make them believe you're doing something that you're not, but also to be breaking at the right time in rhythm and at the right spot so that Jaden Daniels is able to throw with anticipation and trust that you're going to be at the right spot at the right time, because that was a large part of the offense as well. You think about all those 3rd and 7s or 3rd and 5s that they threw to Noah Brown in the kind of early part of last year, where he was converting those. So they still need someone to do that role, and I still think they want more of a vertical threat on the outside as well.
I agree with that.
So I still think they need some more parts to that receiver room. If you could find one guy that can do all of that, then great. But I think it's probably I doubt you're going to be able to find that one guy. Certainly in free agency, I think you'd probably be able to possibly be able to find that guy in the draft, but you're probably looking at a couple more pieces to fill out a few different roles there.
I agree. I think they need a vertical threat to kind of open up the offense as well as having a vertical threat to kind of push back the safeties to allow for those underneath throws to Deebo Samuel and Terry McLaurin. One last question for me, Mark. I think in addition to having Deebo Samuel, people forget that we had Zach Ertz, who was a pretty good chain mover as well. And we had Ben Sinnott. I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on him. I know he's kind of an area of contention, Luke McCaffrey as well, but we have these draft picks that maybe underproduced last year, maybe had to serve different roles. Do you see potentially either one of them rising? Do you see them being used in a different role potentially next year? Or is it too early to tell right now?
I don't know if I see them necessarily in a different role.
Okay.
I can see their roles being just used a little bit more often. I think that's kind of, those two guys are very good examples of people that are critical about this kind of trade and say you don't want to be giving up draft picks and stuff. You want to be getting someone younger. Well, those younger guys take some time to develop.
That's true.
Sure, you want to get some younger guys. Absolutely, you want to get some younger guys in that room. But unless you're spending a very high pick, which they have more needs in the kind of first round than a wide receiver, unless you're doing that, you're probably not going to find a guy that has a good as impact as what Deebo can do right now. And so those young guys take some time to develop. So, yeah, I think Sinnott is an interesting one. The tight end room in general is an interesting one because obviously Ertz and Bates are both out of contract. And I think Ertz will be back. It seemed pretty clear that he wants to play with Jaden Daniels and loves playing with Jaden Daniels, and Jaden quite clearly has a good rapport with him. So I think they will want Ertz back, and that will probably happen. Bates is a really good blocking tight end. And so they kind of had their two roles there where Ertz was their receiving guy that had a better rapport with Jaden, and Bates is a really good blocker. Now, Sinnott isn't necessarily bad at either role, but he's not as good as either one of those guys in their roles. He was kind of just blocked. And so I think he still has plenty to develop on in terms of a receiver. I think he did a really nice job in the run game. Actually, I think when they saw him
watching that.
used as kind of a fullback or a move tight end where he was blocking on the move, I thought he did a really nice job. And there was some touch. I think there was a touchdown run against maybe Dallas that Jaden had where Sinnott set that block up and let him get that score. And he had a few of those on those read option keepers where he was the guy arcing around and leading the way. So I think he's a good blocking piece at this point. He was always going to be a raw guy as a receiver. He wasn't really a good route runner. He was kind of similar to Deebo in that aspect, that he's a physical guy that could get some yards after the catch, but you have to manufacture him touches. But at this point, you'd rather manufacture those touches to obviously Deebo now, but it was Austin Eckler and to an extent Terry McLaurin and Zacchaeus. Those guys were higher up the food chain than him. So you'd rather manufacture the touches to those guys. But with some development, maybe Sinnott earns more of those touches. So I don't think either one of those guys, Sinnott or McCaffrey, are out of the equation. I'm not writing any of them off yet. But Sinnott certainly still has some development to do as a route runner to be more consistent as a pass catcher. But he still has some upside there as a guy that can create after the catch. We just didn't get to see it too often this year.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mark, thank you for your time today. Hour and 10 minutes. Appreciate your great breakdown. I thought the best part about today's film breakdown was you had some symmetry. You talked about what Deebo Samuel did in San Francisco and how it matches with our Commanders offense. I think it's fantastic that we learned a lot. I'm going to cut up some clips and show it to, break some things down for the public to see. So thank you for that as well. Thank you to 1,568 people watching us live today. This is definitely an impromptu film room. We just talked about it at 1 o'clock in the morning last night. Let's do it. We basically put it together. Thank you for sticking with us. I love doing the film breakdowns. I think Mark and I will keep an eye on free agents that pop up and college prospects that come up. And if it warrants a film breakdown, we'll definitely do so. We want to put out the college films a little bit harder to get because there's some rules with SEC and things of that nature. But we love doing the film breakdowns, and we'll do that often. So thank you for sticking with us. If you guys have any ideas for any questions for upcoming episodes or anything like that, let me and Mark know. And Mark, is there anything else you want to say to the group, or we're all good?
No, I'm good.
Cool. Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. We'll be in touch. Talk to you guys soon. Peace. Enjoy your Sunday. Cool. Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it, man. That was awesome.